Hello legends, it's me again, Rodney Stewart, your Hellmouth Hotline host. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy and well. Before we get into this episode, I just want to give you another little prod into checking out coinsagemedia.com. This isn't the only podcast that I'm doing, and I do stuff other than podcasts. There's a couple of YouTube channels over there. There's a film gallery with 6 of my indie short films, zero budget attempts I should say, and yes, they're worth checking out. Anyway, let's get into this episode. It's the Hammer House of Horror once more, and this is a review of The Two Faces of Evil. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to get into a classic episode of the Hammer House of Horror. Again, this is Two Faces of Evil that aired 1981. The Hammer House of Horror only ran for one season, and I'm kind of devastated at that, because this did have the potential of going for so long. This was kind of the Hammer equivalent of the Twilight Zone sort of thing. It's just a series of standalone horror stories, and this one here, Two Faces of Evil, is probably one of the freakiest episodes in this series. And basically a family holiday, husband and wife and child are heading out into the English countryside to stay at a cottage for a couple of weeks, and they stop to pick up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker attacks them. The car crashes, and the wife wakes up to find out that the husband is badly hurt, and yes, eventually she gets to leave the hospital, and the husband is eventually allowed to return to the cottage with her. He can't speak, but she starts to notice differences in personality in the husband, and she has broken memory of the attack of the hitchhiker in the car, but she starts to remember things, and she starts to notice things about the husband and the attacker and the husband, and her mind starts to kind of blend together. And beautiful little episode. I don't really want to get into too much detail in it, because this is one of these episodes where, if I give away what happens, it is going to completely destroy it, the entire enjoyment of this episode for you. If I do give you the details, if I spoil this for you, you would never forgive me for doing it. There's a nice twist at the end of this episode where you do eventually discover what's happening. Two Faces of Evil. The title kind of does give it away. If you keep that in mind while you're watching the episode, you'll start to see where they're going to go with it. But the final closing sequence of this episode, where the wife eventually thinks that she's gotten away from what's happening, and she's in the back, she's in the back of an ambulance, basically. At the end of the episode, she thinks everything is fine, as fine as it can be for what's happened to her. And the closing couple of shots in this episode, where she, in the back of the ambulance, looks into the front and sees what's in the front of the ambulance, is truly chilling, to say the very least. Just in the execution of the way they did it is so on point. Yes, that's basically all I can kind of tell you in this one. Like, the cast in it is Anne Calder Marshall, Gary Raymond, Paul Hawkins, Pauline Delaney, Philip Latham, Jenny Laird, William Moore. So many names that you would recognise from Hammer history are in this as well. and locations that are used more than once throughout the series. Again, this is not a pointless review. It's part of the Hammer House of Horror series, but such a good episode. Again, it would be like I would kick my own ass for ruining this episode for you. So definitely, if you're into your Hammer horrors, or if you've got an interest in horror movies, and you want something nice and easy to start out on, this is a very, very good introduction to the horror genre for anyone that's got an interest in it. And even from a filmmaking perspective, if you're a student, you're into that sort of thing, this series in particular is a good learning ground to see how to do horror on a very, very small budget. Like, it's all character driven, practical effects, and just the camera tells a story. It's a visual picnic for anyone interested in filmmaking. So good. Go and check out Two Faces of Evil. This box set is not expensive now. It's only one season's worth. I think 12, 13 episodes at the very most. Let me just double check that. I've got IMDb up here. Let me just check. Yes, that's... gosh. Again, as I have said in the previous two reviews here, IMDb has got the episode selection in completely the wrong order there. They've listed this as episode 12, but on the actual box set listings it's actually episode 3. But 15 episodes or so. It's worth every penny of what you're going to pay for this box set. I would highly, highly recommend it. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.